Awakened Living is a 21st century movement for people who consider themselves spiritual but not religious, who have a deep hunger for connected community and a divine impulse for personal and global transformation. Our mission is to encourage and inspire the awakening of human consciousness. Good evening and welcome to Awakened Living Television. My name is TJ Woodward. I'm the Minister and Spiritual Director of Awakened Living in San Francisco. Welcome to our show and happy Easter from all of us at Awakened Living. And I am really excited. For the third time in a row on our show, we have Ashanna Solaris back with us. And in last week's show, we talked a lot about what the crucifixion might mean for us in our own personal lives, and how when we embrace all parts of ourselves, what happens when we're willing to be with some of those deeper emotions. So I'm really grateful that today, this evening, what we're going to be talking about is this resurrection into a new way of being, this awakening into a joyful and blissful life, this transcending, if you will, or allowing this experience to transmute our experience to joy. And I know that Ashanna Solaris is someone who has so much experience with this. And when I see Ashanna, I immediately sense the depth of joy and gratitude that she lives in her life. So Ashanna, welcome back to the show. I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you, TJ.
Time number 3.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you. So let's begin by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do for those who haven't seen the first couple of shows.
Okay, great. So I've been a healer teacher for over 20 years, and I pioneered a work called Clarity Breathwork, and it is a gentle circular breathing technique that helps release stress from the cells of the body. And I teach workshops and trainings and train people how to become breath workers, and also do individual private sessions and help people on their journeys. I'm also a minister that ends up officiating for many of my clients' wedding ceremonies and doing public speaking and officiating over ceremonies and rituals and rites of passage, which today is a big rite of passage.
Yeah, so let's get into this conversation about Easter and this resurrection, what that means, whether you want to share something about your own life or what that means to you, the story of Easter about resurrection.
Okay. Well, I was not brought up in a religious way at all. In fact, they say they took me to church when I was 5, and I cried the whole time, and they never brought me back. So my spirituality was really Mother Nature. Because for me, there were those commercials on television, like don't mess with Mother Nature. And I figured she was the most powerful force around, And so I would pray to Mother Nature, and later got very involved in goddess tradition, and did discover, which we talked about last week, the ancient tradition before Christianity put the crucifixion of the goddess Esther, of fertility, of abundance, of new life. And there's now evidence coming out that it's really Mary Magdalene also, and that the eggs of Easter represent the egg of the sacred feminine, fertility, rebirth. There are even stories now that Mary Magdalene went and helped Jesus, have you heard that he didn't actually die during that time? There are many books written about that the herbs that were brought to embalm him were not the amount of herbs for a dead man, and that he actually rose and walked the path to India. So there's many different stories around what actually happened. However, if we use it for a metaphor, so I've always seen Easter as a time of fertility and abundance and spring rebirth, and the rabbit on the moon being a symbol of fertility and rebirth. Later, I did form a relationship with Christ and became a guest speaker often at Unity, and have really found my own spiritual connection. So for me, in looking at that story of the crucifixion, and in helping many students and clients over the year, it's really the death of the egoic self, the death of that small, separate identity that we think that we are. And the crucifixion is that I was watching once a boyfriend dragged me to the Passion of Christ, Mel Gibson's story. And I thought, why am I having to watch this horrific story? They're just torturing him and torturing him. And then I realized, I had a sudden insight, like that is what the ego does to the Son of God. And we are sons and daughters of God. We are the divine that has forgotten itself. And the crucifixion is that mind that is always saying you're bad, you're wrong, you're separate, you're not good enough, you're unworthy, you'll never be loved, you'll never have what you want, whatever version of the story that is. And the cost, the price for awakening is to surrender that story. Yeah. And to surrender that story, we have to meet that story and see just how pervasive it has been in the formation of our separate identity. So the crucifixion to me is the purification of that identity, and the resurrection is the awakening to the immortal, eternal, infinite spirit that we actually are visiting for a short time in this physical incarnation. And the name of the game is, can we remember who we are while we're in the physical incarnation? And can we be the light of the Christ consciousness or the goddess or the Buddha in this world while we're here, be awake?
Well, amen. Yes,
Hallelujah,
indeed.
brother.
Hallelujah. That was beautiful. That is, to me, the Easter story. So thank you for so beautifully embodying that and articulating it in a way that I think makes so much sense, and not only makes so much sense, but rings so true in my own human experience. So thank you for saying that so beautifully.
You're welcome.
The one thing that stood out, well, a lot of things stood out, but the one thing that I want to maybe focus on is you had mentioned, and at the end, that you said, we are here in this body, let's recognize it now.
Yes.
And so I actually want to talk about what has it meant in your own journey, or in clients or in people you work with, about recognizing our own mortality, and how does that play a role? Because for me, one day I woke up and thought, oh, wow, I actually might die. And I mean, it really did. It occurred to me in that way, because for the first maybe 40 years of my life, it really wasn't. It was a passing thought.
It doesn't quite register that it's actually going to happen.
Yeah, so how does that affect our awakening process, or yours?
Well, it's so important, and it's one of the main teachings of Buddhism, right, is to recognize the impermanent nature of our reality, and that we or anyone else in our reality could go at any moment. And if we keep to that awareness instead of trying to deny that, and much of our Western culture has really tried to deny death. We spoke about that on our last show. And also just the whole embalming of the body, and the formaldehyde, and the preservation, and that tucking death away. When I was in India, you see death everywhere. You see it in the street, it's there, and there's something very liberating, actually, that the whole chaotic mess of it is out there. There's something very enlivening, because it's not hidden away and neatly confined. So more and more to our friends, as we get older, we see our friends going through the journey of death, and more people leaving, and we start to really realize how precious and tender our moments are here on earth. And then it becomes easier to choose love. It becomes easier to choose forgiveness of ourselves and the other, the seeming other, because there is no separation. And our moments become more poignant, more beautiful. I remember this moment, like say I was traveling in Africa, and there was just this moment of awareness coming through me, and I saw this African woman, and I was like in the back of a car, and she was in a bus or something, and I just connected with this eternal soul that she was, and she saw it. And she just lit up, we're just passing by, and she just started waving at me and looking at me. And it was this poignant moment of recognition. I am the light of this world, and so are you, and we are meeting in this moment. And in my travels all over the world, like Guatemala and Africa and India and indigenous cultures, just that recognition that I am what you are. And these forms will die, will fall apart. We don't know how long we have. How can we engage this present moment?
Yes.
That's all we have.
That's so powerful. And the way that I find it in practice so often is with young people, like under 18 months old, like little babies, and especially that age around 1, when they still remember.
Yeah.
There aren't as many filters. They haven't put on the crown of thorns.
So beautiful.
And I mean, I've had such powerful moments of connection with people
Darshan.
in that age. Yeah, darshan.
It's amazing because it's like there's no one there, there's no I there yet to get in the way of that pure consciousness that's coming through.
So it may be a big question, and I know that you and I have a lot of probably ideas about this, but how do we live that more? And I mean, I'm guessing that's our intention, right? My intention is to live more from that knowing.
Absolutely.
So how do we do that? And I know that's, a really broad question.
Whatever it takes, whatever it takes that helps bring us closer to that, and we were talking earlier about friends that are passing and how in that time of recognizing you only have a few months to live, and all the friends are surrounding you now to say how much we love you, and we start appreciating that person, and to as many teachers say, to die before you die, to let in the love, to recognize it, to stop believing the thought, to stop believing the story of not good enough, not loved, not beautiful enough, and realize that everything loves us. Everything is love. Everything is connected. We are connected to everything. And to me, practices, I do practices throughout the day from, my morning meditation, and everything can be a meditation, picking up the tantric masters, that say like the cup is alive. Every particle is Shiva Shakti dancing together, making love. Yes. The doorknob is alive. It's like David White has this beautiful poem called "Everything is Waiting for You," and he says, "Lay down the weight of your aloneness, and move into the conversation."
Yes.
It's like everything is alive. Everything is waiting for us to recognize it, and that's the possibility that's knocking on our door right now. And when, quote, bad things happen, Eckhart Tolle says, like, life is a dream. And then when bad things happen, it's like an alarm clock is going off in the dream, saying, wake up to what you are. Yes. And it is possible, and we have all experienced moments of it, that in the midst of a tragedy, a death, a loss, a moment of everything falling away and dissolving in a recognition that there is only love, that there is only this. Yeah. And often it comes in the midst of those most tragic moments, comes that awakening. We have the possibility to have that awakening without having to have a tragic moment.
Yes, yes. Well, it's in, I'm reminded that in those tragic moments, often it's because my strategies for maintaining some other existence seem to crumble. Yes. And then what's left is this purity. And when things fall apart, as Pema Chodron says, when things fall apart, it's an opportunity for us to open up. And I love I just love what you've just said, because for me, it starts with a decision. It really starts with a fundamental decision that I am awake, I am love, I am God. And so is everything else on the planet. And when I make that decision, suddenly it's as if everything changes.
Everything changes, and then it's right. So they say, don't look for enlightenment. Look for all the ways you throw enlightenment out in the present moment, because it's already here with us. It's all the ways that we discount it and are looking for it sometime in the future. Adyashanti says, when enlightenment in the future is no longer an option for you, you are ready.
Oh, yes. I did a short video called "We Are All Enlightened," and it was met with some skepticism. And what I meant by that is, it's the truth of who we all are. Right. I just don't always know it. As a matter of fact, I've been taught everything to not believe that. Right. And it's funny, the things that get attributed to Buddha on the internet now.
On Facebook.
On Facebook, right? Exactly. But it's there's my favorite quote is, "I'm absolutely sure I'd never said that." The Buddha. And there's the quote about, what have you gained from meditation? And the Buddha says, nothing. I've gained nothing from meditation. It's just I've lost
Right.
fear, I've lost separation, I've lost the idea. And so
much of spiritual awakening is about deconstructing.
Yes.
We think spirituality is about, like we said in the first show, right, getting a better home, getting a better job, getting a better partner, getting a better body. But actually, spiritual awakening becomes about deconstructing all of our beliefs and all the things that we thought were true, so that we can step out beyond that right and wrong into that field.
Into that field.
That's beyond that.
Yeah, and Byron Katie calls it the great undoing.
Yes.
And at one point, I changed that for myself to the great remembering, because I do believe we come in, I mean, we probably come in with all kinds of things from our other lives, and we come in remembering, though. If I look into the eyes of a small child, and I know in our first show we talked about the birth process as well, so...
There's always an opportunity to remember, and it's that dance between, doing the practices and the focused awareness of that remembering, and then doing the work that needs to be done, that the Buddha spoke about, the work that needs to be done. And Adyashanti has a great book called The End of Your World, which is what happens after awakening. So there's the experience of awakening to what we are and who we are, and that there is no separation, and that it is just that vast I am consciousness that we are. And beyond that, not even an I am, just that. And then there's the living embodiment of that realization, and that's a different thing, because that is the deconstruction of the mind that goes into the, like he talks about when awakening hits the gut level. He talks about when awakening hits the mind, then those Velcro thoughts, he calls them, can be very convincing that I'm not enough, can get stronger. Pema calls it heightening neurosis.
Yes.
Like as awakening comes in, it kind of turns up the heat on what is not awakened inside of us. And when it hits the gut level, that's when a lot of the primal terror, the primal fear can come up. And that's when we might need to actually step aside from awakening and spiritual growth and do some therapy, do some trauma healing. So there is that we are all enlightened. And then there's the actual, how do we live that moment to moment, day to day?
Yes, and thank you, because that helped give me some framework, or a different way of saying it maybe. We're all enlightened, and then there's a process of us getting to know that. Or getting to remember that, or coming into awareness or into alignment with that in our daily lives.
That's right. And whatever it takes, for some people, it's going to be a meditation path, for someone else dancing, for someone else taking care of their child, for someone else gardening, But I say, everything that I do all day is a spiritual practice.
Yeah, and I would love to actually talk a little more about that, because to me, at one point, my meditation practice wasn't just about being on the pillow, so to speak, but really about bringing it into daily life. And one of the practices that really has fundamentally changed my way of being is Tonglen, the practice of Tonglen in everyday life. And for those who don't know about it, I'll just share. Tonglen kind of flips a lot of what we've been taught. It reverses it. So many of us have been taught, breathe in love and light, breathe out fear and disharmony and discordance. And this is that I tap into that deepest, truest part of myself, which of course is not a part, but when I recognize that truth, breathe in pain and suffering of a situation, with myself or with a loved one or in the world, and breathe out pure light.
That's right.
And that's a practice that I can take into every conversation, every grocery store line, every place. So I'm wondering if you could share, because I know in just being with you that you live your life as a meditation practice. I feel
Tonglen is actually a practice that I've been using, inspired by Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote Calling in the One, and uses a practice of meeting those smaller parts of ourselves. So, we have the enlightened, mature adult part of us, and then we have these very small parts of ourselves that are coming up saying, I'm unlovable, I'll never be loved, I'll never be good enough, whatever story that they're carrying in emotion. And a lot of times we'll become like the parent again, and we'll say, oh, go to your room, I really don't want to feel that right now, come out when you can be nice, or we deny it, or we suppress it, or we go get another latte, or we'll check our cell phone or our Facebook, but to really do Tonglen with that part of ourselves by breathing into that. This is part of my daily practice, breathing into that part of me. What are you feeling? And then breathing into the feeling. I hear that you're feeling sad. I hear that you're feeling scared. And then breathing out that prayer of healing for all beings that are feeling that.
Yes.
And there might be billions of people that are feeling a sense of unworthiness at this moment right now. And when I can expand beyond it's only me to it is the world that is feeling that, and I am feeling the world, and I can breathe out that prayer of healing, that's more and more my daily practice. Is what I'm feeling is often the world, and I can breathe love into that. And then what are you needing? I'm needing love. I'm needing care. I'm needing a friend, and then breathing into that need that I have. And I find when I do that simple practice, then that need is answered. Then someone shows up, or I show up, or the sun comes out, or suddenly I noticed that the yard was alive with love and beauty and the blossoming of spring, and that what I was looking for was already here, available to me. I just didn't see it because I had the veil of my matrix of beliefs covering my eyes.
Absolutely. And isn't that it?
Yeah.
It's as if we're fully alive, but wearing this mask over our face, not recognizing this beautiful field of wildflowers.
And I really want to come back to what I said at the beginning about my spirituality, and that it was really for me Mother Nature, right, at a young age, and that the theme of this year, of this time of year, rebirth, Easter, fertility, the Divine Mother, that my main spiritual practice is the earth. Is walking on her, listening to the animals, getting out of my anthropomorphic perspective, that we humans are the only thing going on the planet, and starting to just listen to the animals and the creatures and the blossoms and the hummingbird. And I find that spiritual practice brings me right back to this sense of connection and beauty and care for my mother, the earth, for this precious planet, for our life here.
Well, and that is awakening joy. That's the Easter story, right? Yeah. My ability to wake up enough to recognize how beautiful this existence is. Right. How incredibly blessed we are.
Right. Because it's like Lazarus in the cave, it's like Jesus came and said, get up, you're not dead. Rise. Yeah. And we have to at some point say that to ourselves. Yeah. We're telling ourselves this story of woe and this story of pain or this story of suffering. And finally it's like, get up. Yeah. You're not blind, you're not that story. You are the totality of all that is.
Yes.
So open your eyes and see. And there's we are so blessed and fortunate to live the lives that we live here in the Bay Area, and to open our eyes every day on such immense beauty. It's like we have a responsibility, because we've been given this gift, we've been given this opulence and this abundance. Whether we believe we're abundant or not, if you travel to other countries, you're abundant. It's our divine responsibility.
Yeah, what are we going to do with that?
To do something with that, and to have the courage to see the beauty every day.
Yeah, to be something with that, really, to be something within that.
When I did visit India, and every morning, if I prayed, if I gave myself Reiki, if I kind of aligned, I would go out and I would see that it was just God everywhere. And what appeared to be suffering, or it was God in everything. If I didn't take the time to do my practice and I went out, it looked like the end of the world. It looked like a terrifying scene of suffering and poverty to me. So it's really just how do we switch that perspective so that, like Mother Teresa said, they said, how can you go out and be with those people all day? And she said, I'm only serving one, my beloved Jesus in all of his distressing disguises.
Yes.
So I think that's our responsibility, to live in seeing that God is in everything.
Yes. Yes, and Gandhi was said to have said, if you don't see God in the next person you meet, don't bother looking further. And maybe that is the Easter story.
Yeah.
So I do see the God in you. I see the God you are.
Thank you.
And believe it or not,
our time is over.
Our time is up. So
it's so brief, and that's like our time on this earth. It's so brief.
It is.
So to engage it as much as we just engaged each other.
Yes, and thank you. And 3 times on this show, and I feel like we really got there to the heart. of the Easter story. And the Easter story, whether you're religious or not, the Easter story of recognizing our own divinity, our own wholeness, our own perfection, and how we can live it in the world.
Thank you, TJ, for your commitment to that path and to this show and to getting this message out there, and to all the people that you serve, and to your service on Sunday mornings, which I was grateful to attend last week, and creating a space for people to come together in remembrance and in the possibility of healing and honoring themselves.
Thank you, Ashanna. What an honor. So in closing, let our viewers know how to find you, because I know you do incredible work, and you do your seminars, your week-long retreats.
Yes.
How do we find you?
Okay. So if you're interested in my work coming up on the Big Island and in Costa Rica and in Canada and Europe in the fall, come and visit ashannasolaris.com or claritybreathwork.com. You can also check out our videos on YouTube if you look up Clarity Breathwork. Thank you so much for tuning in.
And thank you, Ashanna, again so much for you sharing your light, your love, your presence, and your gifts with us 3 times here on Awaken Living Television. And thank you so much for being a guest speaker at Awaken Living last Sunday. And to all of you, happy Easter. And if there's one intention that I would like to leave us with, is the knowing of the incredible source of love, compassion, and abundance that we are, that you are. And the Easter story reminds us of this truth, of this incredible opportunity to live our lives as love, as light, as source. And how does this change the world? It changes the world because the moment I recognize that and I know that, everything changes. So congratulations for your resurrection into this new way of being, this way of being open-hearted, loving, and deeply connected with the truth. Please join us at an upcoming event at Awakened Living. You can visit us online at awakenedlivingsf.org. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy Easter and good night.